Hi, guys, welcome back to the Earthly Delights podcast. In this episode, we will be talking about all of the arts that have inspired us, and this is in light of the film Joker, which kind of illuminated mental health and obviously had many good reviews, amazing reviews, in fact, and has won a lot of awards, but has also been called too dark for people who are potentially mentally unstable. But before we get into any of that, obviously, we're going to start off with what's the crack. So without further ado, Jim, what is the crack?
Sebastian, how are we doing?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Tell me what's going on.
Been good. The last week or so, I've been like in a real good mood. I was in a bit of a slump, but now I've been trying to actively do things or listen to things or read things that like I know put me in a good mood.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been listening to music which makes me happy and puts me in a good mood. Classic disco, even Disney. Can't go wrong with some of the tracks from Disney. And then I've got back into running, which I let myself get out of and hadn't done it for a good while. And then before you know it, it becomes this massive thing, and you build it up into your head. And the longer you go on without doing it, the more difficult it seems to become even though I've done it a million times. So I've got back into that, which just is almost a form of meditation for me. And I come back and I just feel so much more relaxed, and it kind of blocks out the white noise of the world that we always hear, that inner chitter chatter that you have in your mind. And then I've just improved my diet massively, cut out all the carbohydrates, and just trying to eat as clean as I can, at least within the week, because after Christmas it was definitely needed. I put on a good few, I would say, a stone and a half easy, so that's been needed. And then last but not least, I've got into audiobooks in a big way because I've just realised that they're basically extended podcasts. Because even though I prefer a tangible book where I can turn the page, you need to do it in the right circumstances, and on the metro or at work is not one of those circumstances. So it's just so much easier and more accessible. So I've got into those massively.
What audiobooks?
The first one I got was the 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson,
Okay.
which I'm sure we'll go on to talk about today, in a bit more detail. I'm just getting up my list now, mate. So then I read A Monk's Guide to a Clean House and Mind. So I was watching a little GQ interview with Lord Kana, the
Yeah,
rapper.
yeah.
I never know if it's loyal or loyal because it's spelled with an E at the end. But anyway,
I think it's loyal.
is it loyal? Yeah. And yeah, so his girlfriend turned him onto it, and he kind of had the same reaction that I think most people have when they read the title, which is just, what a load of crap. But in reality, it does help. I've noticed a big difference, and it's just, if you can keep your house uncluttered, then your mind will be in a similar state. And even Jordan Peterson, I think one of his first rules is just make your bed every morning. So obviously it's something that is common amongst people who kind of have their shit together. So I thought I can definitely learn from them. And it was a very short audio book. It lasted 40 minutes, so it can't be more than 100, 150 pages, if that. But I've definitely found it to be useful in my day to day. So now it's just about keeping on top of it and trying to make my bed every morning and not just run out the house on the way to work. And then last but not least, I'm reading currently The Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi, which has been recommended by many people, including Joe Rogan. And so if it's good enough for him, it's definitely good enough for me. But basically, it's about this master swordsman from Japan back back in the 1400s, I think it is, and it's his own journal of how he has, or how he basically achieved complete mastery of the sword, but that came with achieving mastery of the mind. And it just talks about how he becomes a more disciplined and centered person, and to master anything. It's not necessarily about being a samurai warrior, but to master anything, you have to have a purpose in life and have an unwavering focus. So I've been reading that while listening to it, I guess, and it's been really interesting. I have to listen to it when I'm concentrated. I can't just listen to it at work or have it on in the background because it's very focused. But yeah, that's been really good. But enough about me. How have you been doing?
Um, Good. Today, I'm currently in the city that I was studying last year to visit some people. So it's been a nice breakaway from the volunteering in Denmark. And yeah, it's just been strange. You know, when you go back to a city that you know very well, but you haven't been to
Yeah.
in quite some time. Yeah, it's kind of like nostalgic feeling.
Good nostalgia.
Yeah, definitely, man. I love this place. Really do. Very special place.
Good, good.
The the other things was when you were talking about the books. I was reading this book. It's called Warrior, King, Lover, Magician,
Hmm.
and the book is basically criticizing the fact that nowadays in Western society and pretty much across the board, we don't have any rituals that assist boys and girls reaching adulthood. So, you know, hundreds of years ago or whatever, there would be tribes that would have certain rituals to say, okay, yes, son, when you're this age, you do this, and then we can consider you a man.
Hmm.
And the book was saying that now what we have are, you know, hollow shells of rituals like, I don't know, some sort of graduations, academic
Yeah.
graduation ceremony, or, you know, a driver's license, or maybe you can live alone. And I think living alone is very important, but it still doesn't really encompass like a holistic adult
Mm.
view. And so that was interesting. It's got me thinking. And then I just finished yoga teacher training at the
Oh, nice.
yeah. So that was a nice thing to complete.
So, are you like a qualified yogi now?
I have to do 25 hours in another place, and then I apply for the official certificate or the certification, whatever you want
Mm.
to call it.
But it's just
Yeah,
a
but
formality.
we'll see. Yeah, I mean, if I really want to do it, I can do it now. At this point where I just want to focus on my own kind of practice for a while, and then I'll be confident to teach. Right now, I just don't think I know enough about the body. Like, there's so much that can go wrong with yoga. It's not even like being a football coach or basketball or something like this. In yoga, I mean, if you just put one thing wrong, and because you don't know the background, somebody might have back problems, knee problems,
Mm.
all these things, and you really have to be prepared. And right now, I'm just trying to learn about my own body, and then I can move on past that.
Mm. I was watching recently a documentary about it's on Netflix about Bikram, like Bikram yoga.
Oh yeah, don't talk
And
to me about Bikram.
yeah, and about how the guy's just basically this like absolute like paedophile, like
He's
well, actually
what's it
not
called?
paedophile. That's
Charlatan.
wrong.
Charlatan.
Yeah, not paedophile because he actually never went with minors. It was just like he would just abuse like the women in his like group and just take advantage of them. And that was
Mm,
a bit like, wow, okay.
yeah, man.
But yeah, well, seeing as we've already started talking about books that we've got into and that have interested us, I think we should probably just get straight into the main topic. So here it is. This week we are going to talk about just art forms or pieces of art that we have like found useful, helpful, uplifting, or just thought provoking. And that was like the idea was because we both watched The Joker, and at least within my circles, I'd seen a couple of people on Twitter, especially, like saying how good the film was, but then kind of caveating it with say by saying if you've in a dark place at the moment or you're
Mm,
not quite mentally stable or whatever, don't watch the film as it like might kind of push you over the edge. Which I was like, that is a very strong like warning. So it kind of intrigued me to watch it even more. So then when I finally did watch it, it definitely lived up to all expectations. Like one of the best films that I've seen in recent years,
mm-hmm.
100%. But I don't agree with the if you're in a dark place, don't watch it because it will tip you over the edge. Because I just kind of thought, obviously, it's a dramatized, exaggerated version, but I thought the film was more about how we as a society kind of how through our ignorance and by ignoring people with mental health, you can push someone so far. Now, obviously, you don't. Not everyone who's mentally ill is predispositioned to become the Joker. So obviously, that's the kind of dramatic license, I guess, that they have. But I thought that was the take on it more than oh, it's such a dark film. If you're upset, don't watch it because you're going to be suicidal afterwards. I don't know if you agreed, but that was like kind of my take on it.
It was for me. It was just a very nice, or maybe not nice is the word, maybe a very profound way of highlighting how people can commit atrocities. Like people can do things which can be considered evil, and I think it's controversial because generally in the media people like to say, "Oh yeah, he's evil." You know, you'll see like pictures of terrorists, and you'll just say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, these people are they're all evil. They're all just scum, all from birth. You know, they're destined for this." And it kind of takes away any sort of look at the fact that we are products of the environment and the society we live, and that if people are reaching
Mm.
these levels, I think we really need to look at society and stop blaming the individual. Which is also why, which is also
Mm.
fall into my critique of Jordan Peterson, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say that that falls in perfectly with Jordan Peterson. Not linking Jordan Peterson and the
Absolutely
Joker,
no,
but yeah.
no.
But no, yeah, I definitely like agree with that. I just thought I tell you what it did do for me. It just made me when I came out of the movie, and I think it's because I went to watch it with Louisa. I think it just kind of made us reflect on our own lives a little bit,
Yeah,
but not like actively, not as if in the sense of I came out and thought, oh, now I need to look at my own life. It just kind of put me into that state of mind, and Louisa too, and just like kind of evaluating where we are, what we're doing right now, like living in
yeah,
Madrid and so on and so forth, which was interesting because there's not too many films that I've come across that kind of subconsciously make you do that.
yeah, yeah,
But I definitely want to watch it again. I've only watched it once, and I definitely think it's one of those films that kind of like an onion. Like the more times you watch it, the more layers you'll get to peel back, and there'll be more understanding. So I want to do that. I thought, but I just thought even if you try to take away the meaning, you try to take away everything else,
no,
just as a film, I just thought it was like amazing. I thought the soundtrack was incredible. I thought
yeah,
Joaquin
true,
Phoenix's like
true.
depiction of the character was unbelievable. Like I didn't doubt him for 1 second. I just thought that was the Joker. It wasn't like, oh, this is someone trying to play the Joker, which is even harder after like Heath Ledger's performance. You know, I thought it was brilliantly shot. I just thought the whole thing, like as a whole, it was just amazing.
He has an unbelievable ability to play characters that are very disturbed.
Mm,
Like I think I've seen 3 or 4 films where he, really gets inside of what it can be to be truly vulnerable and then feel like the only option is this form of expression because that's kind of how the Joker felt. The Joker felt like, okay, these actions are the only way that people will listen to me or give me some sort of authority, I guess.
mm,
And that's obviously what's lacking very much. So I mean, I think it also it was a nice film for people who maybe are interested in trying to become more compassionate or just more thoughtful about other people.
yeah,
Even me, I mean, because I live with a lot of people, it's very easy for me to say like, oh, like she's being a bit of a bitch today, or yeah, well, why didn't he do this? But you really have no idea. And then what is the bigger thing to do for me, and what I'm trying to do is when these people do these like subtle acts that I know aren't representative of their
mm,
person, I'm probably just going to ask them like, "What's going on?" Like, and so far it's been received well because a lot of the time people just want to be heard and people just want to try and express, and sometimes these expressions come out and by true negative means just because they are frustrated with what they think they have available.
yeah. No, 100%. I couldn't agree more. So I think like that's a good segue into what we should talk about now, which we've kind of already spoken about somewhat, which is one of the books that I've read,
Mm-hmm.
which is 12 Rules of for Life by Jordan Peterson. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of been in the headlines a lot. I think it was a New York bestseller for good and bad reasons. Kind of a bit controversial as a book, but I just thought I didn't want to make any sort of judgment on it without reading it. So I'll just go through quickly I just rattle off what the 12 rules are, and then I've
Okay.
made some little notes, and so we can just kind of go through some of the key rules and what you like think about those rules if you agree, whatever else, and then like your take on Jordan Peterson, as a person, as an influencer, as a philosopher, seeing as you've actually gone to
Cool.
see him live and I haven't. Right. So the rules are: number one, stand up tall with your shoulders back. Number two, treat yourself as you would treat someone in need. Number three, surround yourself with friends who want the best for you. Number four, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not someone else today. Number five, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them, which for us, as we don't have kids, is kind of like a void point. Number six, I believe, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Number seven, tell the truth. Number eight, assume the person you're talking to can tell you something you don't know. Number nine, be precise in your speech. Number 10, don't bother, do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Number 11, I think, pet a cat when you see one in the street. Dogs are okay too. Oh no, I think that was number 12. So yeah, they're the 12 rules. So we'll just kind of like go through them. So number one, stand up tall with your shoulders back. Basically, I mean, it's quite self-explanatory. Basically, the whole chapter kind of talks about walking around with slumped shoulders and an arched back, shows how you see yourself, and doesn't demand respect of others. Stand tall, have confidence in yourself, and then others will have confidence in you too. Just as like a caveat to all of this, what we're about to say, if you're interested in the book, definitely read it. Don't like just listen to this podcast and think it's that's it now. You don't need to read the book because he goes into way more detail. He like gives biblical references. He talks about nature. For example, I think in this one he talks about lobsters and how the lobster culture is, and like how like male lobsters when they have to fight and this, that, and the other. Like he goes into science. He goes into psychological things. So like there's a lot more detail in every chapter. So definitely like if you're interested, go and buy it. Go read it. I'm gonna read it again so that I can fully understand it. But yeah, so that's the first rule. So thoughts, ideas, opinions.
Me.
Yeah.
uh, I read some of it. I didn't read all of it.
Mm.
Um, and like I have seen a lot of his interviews. I did like I used to be a very big fan of his, but I guess maybe more just the way my life has gone the last 12, 18 months. I kind of see some of his perspectives as flawed or just not helpful for what I think we need more broadly. The ones that I remember you saying, three and four, I really agree with. Which were, what were they again?
Three is surround yourself with friends who want the best for you, and four is compare yourself
Yeah.
to who you were yesterday, not someone else today.
Yeah, very much agree with both of them.
Yeah.
But again, on the flip side, and I'm sure he says it in three, where it's also important to be around people that that can test you and that make you realize how good your good friends are and make you realize what wanting the best for you, how it manifests for people. You
Mm.
know, like you really can only, I think you can only really appreciate these things when you either don't have them then or when you have experienced the polar opposite and then you say, oh yeah, no, this is this has provided more clarity for me. The number six one, can you remind me number six?
Six is set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Basically, like yeah, people in glass houses can't throw a stone type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
This one I have qualms with, and I watched his debate with Slavo Zizek maybe last year, and this is the point where I thought his argument was quite flawed and just quite reductive, quite myopic, where he was just like generally, yes, I get that. I mean, if if you have issues that you should look after, you know, maybe don't be criticizing other people. But sometimes you are in situations where there are structural there are structural issues that are really preventing you from being able to do that, to do clean your house. And I don't think he acknowledges it. I think he puts too much emphasis on, yeah, the individual can do anything. Like, don't get me wrong, the individual can do a lot. And I don't want to say, no, it's all about society, but without highlighting how the structures, like in the Joker,
Mm.
have contributed to this, to a lot of people being disillusioned, a lot of people, you know, not wanting to leave their room, a lot of people anxious, all these things. Like if you don't acknowledge that and you just say, hey, like, just work on it and then you can criticize
Mm.
others. I just, like, yeah, I just think it's individualizing a really broader problem, and then that's only going to put more pressure on the individual.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. The first rule, just to loop back, I like agree with. I think actually it's one of my rules. People, the one of my good traits, or maybe annoying traits to some people, is my confidence, or at least perceived confidence.
Hmm.
And I always like tell people who aren't confident. For example, Louisa, who does is not necessarily. She's definitely growing in confidence, but when I first met her, anyway, she was timid and shy. And I just always say, if you don't have confidence in yourself, how can you expect anyone else to? People will never know you as well as you know yourself, and so for that, it's almost like you have to sell yourself. But if it's like, it's like trying to sell a product that you think is shit and you've told everyone is shit. Well, obviously, you're never going to sell that product. If I say to you, "Oh, Jim, do you want to buy my TV? It doesn't work. It's terrible. The graphics are awful, and every now and again the volume goes, but I'll sell it to you for 500 quid." Obviously, you're going to say, "Nah, you're right, mate." But if I tell you how good my TV is and I like inject confidence into how I think the TV works, then you'll all of a sudden be more interested. And I just think it's the same thing in person. I just think like you have to kind of take the bull by the horns and be confident in your own abilities. I think it's definitely a cliche, that whole thing of nobody is you, like you being you is your power, like use that and all the rest of it, like you're unique and all that stuff. But it is true, like you have to be confident in your own abilities and in who you are and what you bring to the table in any situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking professionally, personally, like whatever the situation may be. Like, I just think if you're confident, it kind of breathes off you, and people can see that, and they're just more attracted in general to confident people. Then I think there's a fine line between being confident and cocky, but if you can just be quietly confident in what you do and what you bring to the table, I just think you'll kind of demand respect because you respect yourself. So I
I,
definitely agree with that point.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think the product comparison is actually doing ourselves harm. I think comparing humans to products is actually kind of often done nowadays. You look at people and you say, "Oh, yeah, like these are their attributes.
Mm.
This and this, and then they're not good at this." But I think I think we really need to understand or try to look at humans not necessarily like, yeah, it's important to be confident, but I think like I change my mind on this often, but I think sometimes if you're not feeling confident, to me, authenticity is more important than an illusion of confidence. And to me, impressing people or impressing someone that I don't even know or appearing confident to people that I don't even know doesn't really interest me too much. What interests me is trying to
But
show that.
if I was to jump in and play the devil's advocate, I
Mhm.
would argue that like you can't be authentic without being confident in who you are, because only like if you're truly authentic and like true to who you are, that is because you're confident in who you are. That doesn't mean that like you're without flaws or that you completely love yourself and you think you're God, but you know that you are a good person, that you do good things, that you bring good points to any relationship, be that personal or professional. Whereas I think people who try to imitate, there's a big difference. Like I'm not saying be a peacock and make out that you're this amazing thing, but just know that like for example, Louisa, she was like a timid, shy person, but she's the nicest. But like, and I'm not just saying this because she's my girlfriend. I think most people who've met her, you've met her. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. Like she doesn't say a bad word about anyone. That's just who she is. You can't teach that to someone. Be confident in that. Like, be confident in the knowledge that you're such a nice person, and that will allow you to be a bit more, you know, extrovert in the sense of getting to know more people. Because she suffered with this thing of like, oh, everyone's going to hate her, like from the get go. She wouldn't introduce herself to people because she's like, everyone's going to hate me. And I was like, well, anyone who ever even knows you slightly doesn't hate you because they just know that you're such a good person. Now, they might not have the same interests as you and so on and so forth, so you might not be best friends, but I think like being authentic comes with confidence because you know who you are. Do you know what I
True,
mean?
but I think also that then shows or that can contribute to expressing yourself in unconventionally confident ways. Like I
Mm,
think I've confidence now, but maybe someone walking down the street might not think I'm confident because I don't walk in a certain pose or I don't sit
mm.
like I'm confident or because even if I am a confident person, like there are times where I'm not confident and I would much rather just say this than saying,
Oh
hey,
yeah, then put a front on.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And so like
I
even Conor McGregor isn't
yeah.
confident sometimes.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I tell you what was interesting though. Like even just physiologically,
Mm,
when I listen to that, because I slump quite bad. Like my posture's quite bad,
mhm.
and my parents always tell me. And like actually just walking around with your shoulders back, your chest out a little bit. Like I'm not saying walk around, like a bodybuilder, but just having good posture. It actually makes you feel better in yourself.
Yeah,
Like you get a little
yeah,
bump,
yeah,
you
yeah.
get a little extra, a little more pep in your step. So even just physiologically, like not even thinking of it profoundly, even if you just literally take it for what that chapter is, stand tall with your shoulders back, that will make you feel better within yourself, regardless of what other people think of you. So that was that. Then number two was an interesting point. Number two was treat yourself as you would treat someone in need. And basically, studies show that like we would not always follow the instructions of a doctor, for example, for ourselves, but we will do so for others. For example, if we care for ourselves, no, so basically, if we care for ourselves as much as we do for others, then we have a chance of becoming our best selves. And basically, what he said was there's studies that show that as humans, we take better care of others, even our pets. So if we went to a veterinarian and they said, right, give your dog this dosage every 6 hours, blah blah, for the next 10 days, we will follow that prescription to the letter. However, when a doctor, or let's say a doctor said that about your mum, like give your mum, you imagine she's an old age or your nan or whatever, give her this prescription every day at 12 o'clock. We will make sure that they take those pills, come what may. But yet, when the doctor gives the prescription to us, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel better now. I won't take the last few antibiotics. There's no point. Or oh, it doesn't matter that I missed it this evening. I'll just take it tomorrow morning. And he just kind of extrapolates that theory into life basically. And I just thought it was quite an interesting point, a point that like I recognised in myself, but I'd never actually thought about before. So I just thought it was quite good. It's quite self-explanatory. I don't think we need to go into it too much, but that was a useful tip.
A good example that
Um,
just popped into my head was how
yeah,
chefs usually don't cook great food for themselves. Yeah.
exactly.
And doctors
Yeah,
are historically bad at taking care of themselves.
exactly. So it's so counterintuitive
Yeah.
because you would always think that you would want the best for yourself, but I think actually as humans we always put others before us, and if we can, it's not saying that put ourselves first, but if we just took the same amount of care as we did of our best friends, our girlfriends, our mothers, our fathers, then actually maybe we might have a fighting chance of improving us ourselves individually. This third one, which obviously a very obvious point, but surround yourself with friends who want the best for you. Reasons people don't do this are they don't believe they deserve better,
Mm.
so they don't surround themselves with people who want better for them, or they can be bothered with the effort of better. So seek friends who don't push them to be better. This is called repetition compulsion by Freud. So yeah, basically it kind of just goes into the thing about how there's certain types of people, one type of person doesn't actually want the best for themselves. That they know what it is to have the best for themselves or to do the best, but they don't actually want that because that requires a lot of effort. And so having a friend that's like, oh, come on, Seb, you could do better. Come on, you could be fitter, you could be healthier, you could be reading more books, you could be whatever. It's just a bit like oh, what's the point? I'd rather just have a friend who has no aspirations and no goals or objectives and isn't that pushy and is happy to live a mediocre life like I am now.
Mm.
And then there's people who just don't think they deserve any better. They just think that they deserve the worst that life can offer them.
Another reason why I think, and this could be even more common than the other two, and what I've come across very often, is the idea of loyalty. And so I've come across a lot of people that are friends of people, and that I really, on their interactions and spending time with this group, I really don't get the impression that there is a lot of care and hope and aspirations for the other people. But they
Mm,
stay there because they've been, oh, I've been friends since I was five. What am I
mm,
meant to do? Like, of course I'm going to go to the pub with him, or of course I'm going to play football with him. And yeah, he annoys me a little bit, but yeah, like we're best mates, whatever, like this. And I'm not saying, oh my God, like dodge all your long term friends now. But it is really important to take a step back and go, wait, like, do I think that I'm surrounded by people that want the best for me? and
Yeah.
and regardless of it, like even if it's your sister or your dad, and if these people aren't what you think doing what is best for you. I'm not saying disown them or anything, but it's important to see that and important to
Mm.
question that and then try and put yourself in scenarios where people are actually pushing you towards an area or a path where you know, can stand, like, can go based on the values that you have. You know,
Mm.
like, man, just a story, right? Last Christmas, like, I went home and I was having a few pints with my mates, and my mate's older brother, no, sorry, yeah, my mate's older brother was there. And I could be missing a few details, but I remember he told me he had just been moved down to the countryside in Ireland, a place called Tipperary, probably like 2 hours away from Dublin. And I was asking him how he was getting on. He was like, "Man, I love it. I really, really love it." And he said one of his favorite things about it was that he didn't have to, like, he didn't spend the weekend with the mates that he's been spending his weekends with for 20 years. Like, this man's in his 30s,
Mm.
and he basically couldn't felt that he couldn't do it if he was working in Dublin. He could only do it when he was in a different county, in a different region in Ireland, where he could go,
Mm.
"Oh, I can spend more time alone, or I can spend more time with people, different people." And I remember thinking, "Oh, like, Jesus, I mean, like, you can't be waiting." Yeah, I mean, it's very easy for me to say because I think I've been lucky with my friends.
I'm definitely guilty as charged. I think
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a bit of a magpie for friends. Like I just kind of collect them, and then I just can't seem to let them go.
Well, man,
Wait,
did I tell you about the podcast I was listening to maybe 2 months ago now? And the woman was talking about. I think I told you about this. The woman was talking about relationships. Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, and how we usually say, "Oh, if somebody divorced or something ended, they will say, oh, I'm sorry this ended." Like, "Oh, you must be going through some tough times." They
mm,
don't. I think we can sometimes switch it. We can go, "Oh, well, no, I mean, we had this relationship for this amount of time. I really benefited from it, but at this point in my life, I don't feel like this relationship is benefiting." So,
yeah, I've definitely tried. You did tell me about that, and
yeah,
I've
yeah.
tried to take that on board and just see it for what it was. Like, oh, that was a friendship from 14 years old to 16 years old, and that was all it was ever supposed to be.
Mm,
And that's that. It's not like a bad thing. It's not a good thing. That's just life. But I think my problem is that like I'm such an open book, and I would tell I would tell a like a homeless man on the street my most inner deepest secrets. And so when I form like a friendship with someone, to me that means something. Like even with you, like it's funny. I tell my friends, and they're like about our relationship, and they're like, only you could do that. Like only you would do this. And to people who don't know what we're on about, to give a bit of context, I met Jim at this Italian summer camp where basically you teach English to kids in Italy. And we met. We were at the training facility where everyone goes before they get sent off to their individual camps.
mm-hmm.
And we were met. We were there for what 2-3 days max, I think.
Think three
Bef-
days.
yeah, two
Yeah.
three days before we got sent off to our camps. So we like formed a little friendship there, and then that was it. Then I got sent to a different camp, and you got sent to a different camp. So that was that. And then a year later, we kept in contact. And then a year later, you came over to Madrid to see me.
Mm-hmm.
This is how little I knew you. I couldn't remember if your name was Jim, James, or Jimmy. I was like, fuck, what's his name? I knew it was one of the J's. And then I was like, oh, like he seemed like a nice guy, like for the 2-3 day period that I've met him, but it was a bit different, like inviting him over to my house in Madrid, like we're gonna, do you know what I mean? I was like, this could be like go tits up. I was like, oh fuck it, like whatever. So then was like, had you over, then that was cool. That was a nice weekend in Madrid. Then we kept in contact like every now and again. Then I came over to Dublin to see you.
Mm-hmm.
That was another year. Came over
Yeah.
to Dublin, and then we've since kept in contact. Then we came up with the idea to do the podcast because we realised we're kind of like interested in similar topics, and then you came over to Madrid about a month ago, which was easily a year and a half since I came to Dublin. So in
Yeah.
about a 5-year period, we've actually met each other 4 times. And
Yeah.
all of those times have been at 3 days kind of little sections. It's never been like, oh yeah, we went on holiday for 3 weeks and really like solidified that friendship. Do you know what I mean? And so when I tell people that, they're just like, only you could fucking do that because everyone else would. But like to me, it's like, well, he's a nice guy. Like he seemed interesting. He seemed like a good guy. Like unless he's like being an idiot or something, why would I just like sack him off? But the problem was with me, like obviously with you it's worked out well, but with me I think I carried that on to people. And I don't. This sounds really crude and cold, but to people who kind of bring no value or added value, I should say, to my life anymore.
Mm.
But because I got on with them when we were 16, I find it really hard to be like, oh, that's it. And the thing is, obviously, like I should be aware of this because I'm a different person to when I was 16. I hope for the better, and of course, that person's going to be a different person. So the fact that we had similar interests and we used to go to school every day together in the car or whatever else when we were 16, that doesn't mean that now we're the same type of person. But I must admit, I do find it hard to drop friends, and I'm guilty of saying, right, this is the last time. If they don't do this, like that's it then, and then I still give them like 10 more chances. But I've tried not to because also what I've realised, kind of like what your friend was saying about moving to another county in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm in Madrid, that's a Freudian slip there. Now that I'm in Dublin, now that I'm in Madrid, I only have a limited amount of time to spend with my actual friends,
Mm-hmm.
and because I can't see them every weekend. So kind of like the flip of what your friend's brother said. Because I can't see my friends all the time, I actually value my time with them a lot more. Even if that's a phone call, I value that a lot more now.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
now want to concentrate the limited amount of time that I have to the people who I really care about and who really like mean something to me. And I read something recently, and I think it's really true. Just because we're no longer friends doesn't mean we have to be enemies. Like it's
Yeah.
not that I hold any ill will to any of my mates who now we're not so close to or anything like that. It's just I think it's just like the passing of life. I just think it's meant to be. Otherwise, we'd all have 500 friends. There's a reason why we don't, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I do. I think I would count myself in a group that has more close friends than most other people because I have friends from so many different areas. You know, I have friends from an Italian summer camp of 2 days. I have friends from my boarding school. I have friends from uni. I have friends of Madrid and so on and so forth. So I've got like this like huge like conglomerate of friends. But they're the ones who I do now count as my friends. I know they're real friends, and they've shown, like in the hard times that I've had in the last few years, that they were there for me. So that was kind of like a
Mm.
good acid test, you know,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
almost like
yeah,
a bit of a weeding out process. So that was good. Like obviously, for example, when you came to Madrid, you met Michael, and I've known Michael since I was 11,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and we talk every now and again, every 2 months, whatever it may be, and he's notoriously hard to get hold of. But there was one time where he was so hard to get hold of, I was starting to kind of reevaluate the friendship and see whether it was worthwhile. And I
Mm.
thought, look, he's been one of my oldest friends. He deserves at least a warning call, like a proper face to face. So I just sent him a phone call and I just said, listen, man, like I think you're a really nice guy. I still like love you just like I did when we were 11. Like, because obviously we're at boarding school, so we live together. So like we're literally like brothers. But I was like, this thing of me calling you or texting you and you texting me back 3 weeks later, even though you're on your phone all the time, I'm not about it. Like, if you're busy, that's fine. And just as communication, like, just tell me, like, oh, bro, like, I'm busy, I'll get back to you on Monday or whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And he really appreciated that call, and he was like, "Oh, like I know that I'm bad, but like I appreciate you giving me the heads up, and like I'll really try and work on it." And every now and again, he like slips back into like old Michael, and I have to text him being like, "Michael," like, and they're like, "Yep, sorry, my bad, my bad." But it's just that communication, it's just that understanding, and obviously I did that with him because I value our friendship that much. Obviously, if there's another person, I'd be like, "Look, it is what it is. Like, leave it." So that was that. So that's that second point. Um,
Man, I'm glad you told me that because I actually plan on having a similar chat with a mate over Christmas. So
yeah.
yeah, I may need
Yeah,
some
no,
niche
it was just,
tips.
it was just no, it was just me being honest. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's all it was. It was just me saying, "Look, man, I don't want to like. I value our friendship. Like you're my oldest friend. Because I moved primary schools a lot, and so I don't really have friends from 5 years old. My friends are from like secondary school onwards. Do you know what I mean? So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you're like my oldest friend, and you're not just a friend. Like we live together, like every day. Like every day, me and you live together for like 6 years. That it creates a different level of like bond. I could just see us drifting apart, but it wasn't drifting apart because we were becoming different people. It was we were drifting apart because his communication was just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And and the thing is, you can't have a conversation like that. You can't have a conversation whereby I text you something and you text me 3 weeks later because by then, like maybe what I wanted to tell you about has already happened or is no longer important or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying you have to text me back within 3 seconds, but there just has to be that communication of, hey man, like I'm busy at the moment, or like I'm on a date, or like, do you know what I mean? I don't care, like I'm on the toilet, I'll, like, can I call you in 15? Just that
Yeah.
communication is enough. And that's all, and I knew that that's all it needed to like save the relationship and the friendship that we had. And since then, like it's been cushy. So that's what it was. Obviously, I wouldn't do that with every single person. I'd only do that with the people that I feel like it's worthwhile for. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So that's that. So we've spoken about compare yourself to who you are yesterday, not someone else today. I was talking with Louise about that because she was getting a bit like upset because she was looking at her friends who were doing drama therapy in London and this, that, and the other. And I just said to her, like, I literally said this point out loud, and I was just like, it's so silly to compare yourself to someone else because, for example, whilst in her case they may be drama therapists, maybe their home life might be really sad and depressing and lonely, or like whatever the case may be, or their circumstances are completely different. Do you know what I mean? And it's such a losing battle to always compare yourself to people because you'll always end up losing. Because even if you compare yourself to someone and you're like, oh, you look, I'm better off than that person in whatever variable you're using, whether that's money, whether that's, I don't know, love, happiness, romance, whatever, there's always someone else who will have more than you. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? So you're
Mm.
just fighting this battle which you will invariably lose. Whereas like if you just compare yourself like, okay, maybe not to you who you were yesterday, but who you were 3 months ago, who you were 6 months ago, how far have you come? And that's a realistic metric, and that's something that you can actually quantify, and there's meaning within that.
Man, I wholeheartedly agree with this one because this kind of intersects a conversation I had with my mate 2 nights ago and with a podcast I listened to not too long ago where I feel like a lot of people. So you said that you should compare yourself, like,
Yeah.
oh, how was I last month, 3 months, 6 months? Am I growing? And I really think you should do that. I think a lot of people are afraid of change, afraid of quite a substantial change in their life. You know, change a
Mm.
lot of time leads to resistance. And I think this is partially because, like, I forget the guy's name. I'll find out the guy's name. He was saying how we often are blocked or create roadblocks or we stay static because of our story. So, you know, for instance, I'm unhappy in the profession I'm in and I would like a change and there's a course available, but I don't take it because I tell myself, no,
Mm.
I'm really a veterinarian. You know, I studied a veterinary. Like that's me. Like that's who I am. Rather than saying,
Mm.
"Hey, no, I want to do this, and I need to forget it." Like I shouldn't be held back by what I've done previously. And if you can do that, like if you can, like unshackle these chains, then you can find yourself changing quite quickly, quite frequently, quite often because of that. You know.
Yeah, it's funny. I met up with a good friend, and she'll probably be listening to this podcast. So shout out Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
But I met her in Lisbon. We just happened to be both going to Lisbon at the same time. We met up, and we just started talking about politics and like tattoos and things beforehand that we agreed on. And this time around, we disagreed. So when we first met each other, which was when I was in Erasmus, like I voted for Davy C, Big David Cameron, and this time around, I think I'll be voting for. I didn't vote for Theresa May. I voted for Jeremy Corbyn then, and I think I'll probably be voting for Jeremy Corbyn now. And then we were talking on tattoos, and I was telling her how I'm thinking of getting one, and this, that, and the other for certain reasons. But beforehand, I was very much against tattoos. And she said something, but she not like in a really horrible way, but she said it me as like a dig, but I took it as a compliment. And she's from Cambridge, so this will explain her vocabulary. But she said, "Oh, Seb, you're so transient,"
Mm.
and she said it as like, "Oh." I think what she meant by it is in the sense of like, "Oh, look at you, like you kind of flip flop, you don't stick to your principles, this, that, and the other." But my thing was, oh, like I actually said thank you. I was like, "Yeah, good job on transient," like because it's moronic to stay to the same principles that I had when I was like 19 years old or 18 years old,
Or if you
and
had new
I mean,
experiences or if you've received new information that has changed your previous
well, yeah,
perspective. Yeah.
exactly. And it's when it comes to politics, I don't want to get too much into politics, but I've always thought those people who, whether you're American or whatever it may be, those people are like, oh, I'm a Labour voter for my whole life, or I'm a Conservative voter, or Lib Dems, or Democrats, or Republicans, and that's it. Like, they don't listen to the manifestos, they don't listen to the debates, they don't do anything. It's just like, oh, this is what I've done my whole life. I just thought that's such a nonsensical way of voting, because I just think at every different period of history, is a different leader is needed, a different type of different policies are
Mhm.
needed, and so on and so forth. It's like, because Churchill helped us win the World War, does that mean that Conservatives should be in power forever? No, but it was necessary for Conservatives to be in power during the World War Two because we needed Churchill. Doesn't mean that we now need Boris
Yeah.
Johnson. Do you know what I'm saying? And then, like, say with tattoos, like, my whole thing was I had a very traditional kind of viewpoint on them, which was just like, oh, they're chavvy, they're this, they're that. Then I started to get into them, like, actually, you know what? Like, well done tattoos are
Mhm.
incredible pieces of art. There's no escaping it. I mean, you've got one time to execute. It's not like a painter or anyone else who can go over it, rub it out, do it again. When you're doing it on skin, you've got a one-off chance, and some of the pieces are actually just unbelievable. So I changed from being hating tattoos to being like, they're actually, some can be really nice pieces of art, and then to the kind of the whole 180, which was, I understand how some can have meaning and how you might want to actually imprint that on your skin because it's something that will last a lifetime, and you kind of want to pay homage to that, whatever that may be. And how you choose to express yourself doesn't make you, if you have a tattoo, does that make you a child, or does that make you more stupid, or whatever, or less insightful, or whatever? Of course not. That's such a antiquated way of looking at people. So I've done a 180 on that, and I'm kind of proud of that change of view. So that was interesting. It's just funny how this friend wanted to say,
Mhm.
like, being transient. She meant it as a dig, like, lightheartedly. She meant it lightheartedly, but I took it as a really good compliment. And it kind of ties into. I think this is the last
Okay.
point we'll bring up, and then people can read the book. Otherwise, we'll be here for 3 hours. But it kind of leads into this point, which is, tell the truth. Are your ideas your own, or have you just repeated the thoughts of others? Do you really believe what you say, or is it just what you think others want to hear? Who are you really? Look past your own perception of the self and see who you really are, what you really think, warts and all. Be honest with others, even if it means hurting their feelings. It's obviously telling the truth, but not just in the sense of, like, if Louisa says, "Have I done the washing?" and I say yes or no, like, be honest with myself. Like you were saying, like, if you're a vet but now you want to do a course in marketing, be honest with yourself. Like, is that actually what you want to do? Do you want to be a marketing person? Now, if you do, that's great. If not, no worries. Are your thoughts your own? I think, especially now with the political landscape, and, like, obviously with the general election and stuff, like, there was so much stuff on Twitter about, just basically scaremongering, and people saying how shit Jeremy Corbyn is, how shit Boris Johnson is, and a lot of people on social media were saying that if you vote for Labour, you've only done it because, like, the media and Twitter has, like, influenced you to doing so. Because you've got people like Stormzy and everyone else who are huge influencers telling you to vote for Labour. Are you voting for Labour for those reasons, or are you voting for Labour because that's what you truly believe in? And even if you were the only person to ever vote for Labour, you would still do it because that's the manifesto you believe in. It's just all those little things, like, really self reflecting and evaluating who you are, what you do, and if you're doing it for the right reasons or not. So that was, I think, a very interesting point.
Just two things. One, I brought it up last week. I can't remember where I saw it, but similar to what you were saying, I saw this clip or this piece of writing, and it said that someone. It was like, I think it was a comedian, and someone came up to the comedian, and they say, "Do you tell jokes to make people laugh, or do you tell jokes to make people think you're funny?"
Mm,
And the comedian was like, "Oh man, I have no idea how to answer that
yeah.
question." But that kind of self interrogation. The other thing with the tell the truth to people, even it's going to hurt their feelings. Like, man, I think that needs to come with caveats. I mean, under certain conditions, because I mean, not too long ago I said that as well. Like, I don't believe in lying. That you should just tell the truth unapologetically, and the world would be a better place. But that's in my ideal scenario where people are emotionally mature and are able to take some sort of criticism and are able to take um, other people's opinion of themselves. And that's just not the case
Mm,
right now. Like, people can't do that. So And I would love to live in a world where people told me, "Hey, like Jim, like you're slacking there. Like, let's get on with that." The more important things, not like, "Hey, you've soup on your beard" or something like this. The more important things I'd really appreciate because then you can
Mm.
grow. But man, I think we'd be lying if we said that we live in a world where that would be appreciated. If me and you left our house today and just start
Do,
saying the truth or what we
do you know
believe to
what I
be the
think it is
truth.
as well? I think, and I've learned this with just previous personal experience. I think it's all about the delivery of the message.
Of
You can
course, yeah,
tell
yeah,
the
yeah.
truth in almost all circumstances if you've delivered it correctly, but there has to be a bit of safety around the way that you deliver it. You know, if you're falling out with someone or you're upset with someone, I don't think you should just be raw and tell them exactly how you feel because that will upset them. And they'll probably put them on the defensive and so on and so forth. But if you go, look, like whoever it is, look, mom, look, I'm feeling this way, and like I think it's because you do this, this, and this. Could we help improving it by doing this? All of a sudden, you've changed the whole way that that conversation is taking place, rather than just coming out being like, "You're a shithead. Like you've done this. Like this is a terrible thing to do. You've really upset me. You're an awful person." Do you know what I'm saying? And
It non-violent
yeah, I
communication.
found that with like personal experience where if I just communicated things in a different way, I think I would have had a different result. And ultimately, I was still telling the truth, but I was telling the truth in its rawest form, I think. And I think it was too raw,
But
you
man,
know?
we'll go on like this could go on forever. But also, it's important to say that when you say, "Yeah, I told the truth,"
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
truth.
of
That's your
course.
interpretation of the
Yeah,
truth.
of course.
There's it's very hard to find a
Yeah,
truth.
yeah, no.
You know,
That's the thing. So yeah, so I think we'll leave it on that because, like you said, we could be going on here for 3 hours. So I'll
yeah,
let you
cool.
introduce like your piece of like your next piece of art, literature, whatever it may be that you think's interesting or thought provoking.
Well, it's funny to be honest. Lately, I've been kind of uninspired by fiction. Like I love fiction. Usually, I read quite a lot of novels and short stories. But relatively recently, I've just become. I don't know. Right now, I'm in a place where I really want to soak up some nonfiction. Um, so, for example, even recently, I started reading this book called Normal People, which is a book from an emerging Irish author. I think she got nominated for the Man Booker Prize. And it was weird, man. I was reading the book, but and it was really, really good, but I just wasn't particularly interested in it. And it got me thinking how that's happened to me quite as like at least 4 or 5 times throughout the last few years, where I've just like binged fiction, and then I've just binged nonfiction, and it's just I found myself how it's weird. It just all depends where you are in your life, where you're like, I really need like certain stories that I can relate to. I really want to find out about this certain perspective, or you could say, no, I just want to know like these theories. I just want to know how this happened, and all this kind of stuff. Um, so my art that I've been inspired by and continue to be inspired by is usually music and film. I'd say,
Mm. Anyone in
yeah.
particular? Like if I had to put you on the
Man,
spot and choose an album or a song or
um, the I watched this film last week, and it's a French film. It's called something like the Green something. I need to find out the name of this as well. But the film was cool. It was basically about this civilization living in a different world, but then several of the people living in this world go into like modern Paris in the 1990s, and it was just really kind of uh, eye opening because you saw how far we've moved away from. Because sorry, the civilization that live outside the world, they are just living off the land. They live in communities, they're sustainable, but they don't even think about it as sustainable. They just all do it because it makes sense. Um, and that really made me think about how far we've come. And now sometimes when I look at, like, just even looking around, you're like, wow, like this probably isn't the best way for us humans to flourish. That film was particularly good. I will find the name of it.
No worries. So that's that, and then a song.
Yeah,
You had to like put down on a song, or an album, or an artist.
you go first. You go first.
Okay, well, mine was I was gonna go for a film, or as you say, film. Um, and it's I think it's gonna catch people by surprise here. You know what I'm gonna say, but it's About Time. It's just an unreal film. It really is heroic. Louisa turned me on to it. Spoiler alert: if no one's watched it, what I'm about to say now is going to completely ruin the whole film. But if you have watched it, then basically it's about this family, and the men in the family can travel back in time, but only in their own lifetime. Like they can't go back and kill Hitler. Like it's only what they've already like lived. And basically, this guy falls in love, and they have a family, and this, that, and the other. And he has a really close relationship with his dad, and his dad's just telling him about this superpower that the family has. And turns out that basically they spent the reason they have such a close relationship is because the dad has been like he retired early, and they've always been like playing like like table tennis together, and like just had like the cushiest little life down in Cornwall, I believe it is. Anyway, it kind of transpires that the dad found out that he had cancer and was going to die. So what he did was he went back in time, retired early, so he could spend time with his kids before he died of
Mm.
cancer at the age of like 60 or whatever. And so then, but then it comes to the point where like all of his kids are grown up, and he's like, look, I have to now like actually die. It is what it is. And he just tells like his son, he's like, look, the secret of this power is live every life like normal. So sorry, live every day normal, like a normal human being. Just go through it, and then at the end of the day, go back in time and live that day again, but try to see all the beauty that is in that day that you've just taken for granted. And then basically he goes on to say, I've taken my dad's advice and my dad's secret one step further, and I now try to live every day like the second day, like I do when I go back in time, but without going back in time. And I no longer use my like power. I just live every day and try to see the beauty in every day, no matter how kind of shit and poopy that day is. There's always going to be something that's positive, right?
Mm.
And so I just think like it's such a simple message. It's nothing like really profound or anything, but I just think it's such a worthwhile message. And every time I'm feeling a little bit down or a bit in down in the dumps or whatever, or before, like obviously now I live with Louisa, so I don't miss her. But when I used to miss Louisa, like I'd watch it, and it would just like make me like happy inside and remind me. And so then there are little things that you see that just make you happy, like. When I was walking out of work a couple of weeks ago, I just saw that there was this dad, and he was coming out because work in this big office building, and he came out of the office building as well. It wasn't a colleague of mine; he's from some other office. And like his kid ran up to meet him and was like, "Dad," and like obviously in Spanish, and like ran up and like hugged him. And like I'm just interpreting here, but like I guess that like his son hadn't seen him for quite a while or whatever, maybe been working away or whatever.
Mm.
And it was just nice to see that. It was just nice to see like a dad and son, like a young boy, like hug and like be really happy and whatever else. And just put a little smile on my face while I was leaving work. And it's just those little things. So I absolutely love that film, and I would just recommend it to anyone, even like boys, even if you're single. It's not one of those like chick flicks. It's not like I'm partial to a chick flick, to be fair, but it's not a Bridget Jones or a Love Actually or whatever. It's not like that. It just has a really good, happy kind of theme going through it, and there's no like real twists or turns. It's just a nice film to kind of remind you that life isn't always shit and horrible and grey.
It's all
And like
perspective.
even yeah, man, and even when it is shit, horrible and grey, there will always be some sort of silver lining. It's
Mm.
just whether you can see that silver lining. That's all, and that's what that film reminds me of. So that's why like I love it and I recommend it.
Do you f-
And then the only other, sorry,
do
go
you
on.
feel like you live every day like it could be your last?
No, if I did, I'd be like, you know, I'd be the happiest man in the world. But I definitely, I try to as much as like humanly possible. And then if I realise that I'm forgetting to, I will probably rewatch that film. Like I've watched that film, God knows how many times. I do try to be positive as much as possible. Like if I just little things, man. Like just putting on like this morning when I was having a shower, just putting on stupid music that you can like dance to that you haven't heard in like 10 years,
mm,
just like sets you up right. Do you know what I mean? Like just puts you in good spirits.
mm.
So like just little things like that, man. I try not to take for granted anymore. And then the last book, the last thing that I would recommend, and then it's back on to you, is it's a book that I read which is called When Breath Becomes Air, and it's by a man called Paul Kalanithi, spelled Kalanithi. Spoiler alert again. Basically, it goes on to talk about how this guy he's a surgeon, right? But he's like very literate, and he like studied English language as well, got a master's in that, and he was like a brain surgeon. And basically, he then is fiction, it's non-fiction, sorry, and then he then actually has a brain tumor,
Mhm.
and it's just kind of talking about that juxtaposition and that how he used to be the surgeon, and he used to be the one who was telling the patients what to expect and so on and so forth, to now being sat on the other side of that table, and for a doctor to be telling him what to expect and so on, and that like how he kind of, whilst being a scientist, he was brought up in a very like religious background, and so how does he like juxtapose those two things of, well, I'm a science buff and I know how the human body works and how evolution, all the rest of it, but I'm also brought up as a strong Christian, so I should technically believe in the Bible, but they're obviously contradictory to each other, and all these things, and he just writes it in such a beautiful way. And I read that when I was going around South America, which was about 3 4 years ago now. It just like, I don't know, it kind of similar to the Joker. It made me feel how the Joker made me feel, which was, it just made me reflect on my life, like how I look on life, what's the meaning of life, and all this, because that's what he talks about in the book. But he puts it in such a way where like it doesn't matter if you're atheist or you're religious, anyone would enjoy that book and find meaning in that book. And in reality, I should read it again actually, because I haven't read it for 4 years. But the fact that has had such a lasting impact on me 4 years later, I think speaks volumes. It's literally only 200
Yeah.
pages long, so like you could read it in a weekend. So that's the one. They're my like three ones that I'd recommend. 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, just because I think it makes you think, and there are some points that are definitely contradictory, or not contradictory but controversial, and I think he delivers. Because I listen, the thing is, when you listen to audiobooks, often the author reads it, and when I listened to him, Jordan Peterson, his delivery was very angry in some points, which I found interesting. Then I would recommend just About Time, and then lastly, When Breath Becomes Air. And I think they're my three favourite things. So back onto you. You've got this green film from Paris.
Okay, so yeah, I found out it's called The Green Planet. Sorry, that was just the one that I read that I watched recently that really hit home. In terms of books, definitely there's a book. Well, there's two books written by an author called Michael Singer. I'll try to
Mm-hmm.
give less information than you, just to like maybe add more intrigue. I don't want to give some of it away, but basically, it's this guy who was doing a PhD in economics in America in the 70s, and then he kind of just became fascinated by the voice in his head, and he kind of just became obsessed with it and really wanted to find more and more about it. So he kind of dropped the economics, the aspect or his interest in economics for the time being anyway, and just dedicated his life to really learning about this voice inside his head. He started meditating a lot. And then it's really cool because he just gives really insightful commentary on, well, what I personally go through. And he kind of just puts it in plain English and kind of makes you realize how stupid some of the things you do. Like, even one thing was, the quote was something like, if you treat it, like, if you had a
Mm.
friend that said the things that your mind says to yourself, you wouldn't keep that friend around. But yet we do, and he kind of unravels and like gives you the beginning, the opening tools to really start getting into your relationship with your thoughts, which
Okay.
I really like. So he has two books, one called The Surrender Experiment and the other one is called The Untethered Soul. They're probably my two favorite books the last while. Also, I really like Mentors from Russell Brand because that's super short as well, something like 120 pages, 130 pages. And there are just nice reflections from his life and how he has certain people that he goes to ask for advice, and not even advice because he kind of makes it clear that mentors don't give advice, but they more ask you the questions for you to then answer themselves, because self-reflection is
Yeah.
good, but up until a certain point, I think it can kind of get you in the way of yourself. And it made me think that and that's what I'm currently searching for. Just people that I think are living by the values that I value, and I'd like to. It's kind of like we mentioned earlier, to have them more in my life. So that book made me realize that I would really appreciate some
Mm.
people in my life that can be called mentors. You can call them friends. You can call them whatever. But that book was really nice. Also, I read Siddhartha this summer, which is really good. I don't want to give too much of that away, so I would just say yeah, I would say if you are somewhat interested in a very short classic novel
And,
about Indian spirituality, it's a must see, a must read. And then the movie, man, the movie that sticks to mind recently was I saw Sorry to Bother You last year, which is a film about, I think it's like a marketer in San Francisco, kind of just your stereotypical guy just going through the daily life that he isn't really enjoying. His girlfriend is an artist trying to pursue a career in that area, and slowly but surely the movie, the main character becomes increases his role in the company, and then starts to see the kind of evil underpinnings and the values that the company have, and then it starts to affect his relationship with his girlfriend and his relationship with his friends and his co-workers. It gets quite absurd at the end, and I don't want to say how absurd because it really does get absurd, and people might not like it. I've recommended it to a few of my friends, and they either really enjoy it or they just think it's way over the top. But I would recommend it. It's from, if anybody knows, the second biggest actor in Atlanta. So it's not Childish Gambino, but it's the kind of stoner best friend. He's the main actor. And
and that's called Sorry to Bother You.
sorry to bother you. Yeah.
Okay, cool, nice one. And then I'm surprised you haven't brought up, just lastly before you finish, I'm surprised you haven't
Mm.
brought up your big old Kanye.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm always tentative because I don't think I've ever brought him up and it just be yes, I like this artist, and I can't say like 4 or 5 lines and then just leave it because yeah, I mean, I think he is definitely the most inspirational artist that I've had in my life in terms of his music. His music is just consistently, maybe not so much the last 3 or 4 years, but from 2004 to 2014, he came up with the goods. And no, I don't like every aspect of his personality. And yes, I disagree with a lot of things that he says, but like I can't deny how his music makes me feel, and you know, it's evident that a lot of other people feel a similar way. But I bump all of his albums, so I can't really say. I think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is most polished. It's just the closest thing to perfection you'll ever hear. Actually, I swear, Billboard just gave it the number one album of this past decade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. But
Wow. Yeah, he definitely
yeah,
divides opinion. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. If he works for you, he works for you. You know.
So let's leave it there before we go on to another 3 hour discussion about Kanye West. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Obviously, we're improving as we go on, so bear with us, but we're enjoying the process. We hope you are too. In 2 weeks' time, there will be the podcast with Jim and John, so you will not have to listen to my horrible monotone voice, but you'll get to listen to the charming Irish accent for an hour. And they have a very interesting conversation. So please make sure you tune into that. And before you leave, make sure to subscribe, write a review if you haven't already, and pass it on to all of your friends, family, pets. I don't care. Just pass it on to everyone and everything that you know. Thank you very much and have a good one until next time. Bye.